the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. And life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian. Joining me as always is Henno.
Heyo!
Yay!
And it's like actually been like a month.
Yeah. yeah. You're right.
Well, I was kind of actually hoping that we could do it before, but
Yeah, I goofed. I meant to message you last weekend and I completely forgot. So when you messaged me, I was like, ooh, I'm glad he did that because I was on track to forget again.
and actually it was better for me because that last weekend was my Saturday work. And when I work on Saturday, so my only day off was on Sunday, and
right.
And the weekend before, a nice 3-day weekend, and Kiki was over here too, and I was like, oh, maybe we could do that, and then didn't even think about it.
Yeah. I know. It's like I got to put a reminder on my phone or something like that to because I apparently can't depend on my memory anymore.
Well, I actually feel the free time right now in my life. Like I'm really feeling it, and it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Like I got a message from an artist up here, a guitar player and vocalist who's incredible. Like his original material is great, and what he does in his cover bands is phenomenal. He's an incredible player, and he's looking for a bass player, and he wants to do kind of like what my friends in the Bay Area do, which is you have a band that focuses on big events.
Yeah.
Weddings and
Yeah.
corporate parties and big stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm into that because I work hard at prepping myself, and I kind of want a little larger return on investment.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Right. And so I would be very much up for doing it, but there's certain things that there's what I've heard, there's what I've seen, and then there's what somebody says they'd like to do. And I know he has a production company in the Seattle area. This is what they do.
Oh, okay.
And they have, and most of these bands, you tend to have some core members, and then you have floaters coming in and out based on scheduling.
Yeah, sure.
And then also maybe also like genre wise or whatever. But so he sent me, their set list of music, and I was looking through it and all that stuff, and they've clearly done. It's been a profitable venture for them over there, and he'd like to do the same thing here. And I had this total like, all right, here I'm feeling like I've got free time. Do I want to do this? But then I really realized, I said, you know what? I would do it, but I have boundaries now.
Yeah.
And one of them is if I'm going to play bass in a band, it better be funk, R&B.
Yeah.
Something that gets people dancing.
Yeah.
And what he does up here right now is a lot of jam band stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
It's like, or straight rock stuff. And it's like, no, if I'm going to play bass in a band, I want it to be really funky and really groovy,
Yeah.
and I want it to be fun, and not to have it be a bunch of, because always the response is, well, you got to tailor the set to the people that you're playing in front of. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Just all I was thinking was, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You play, late 60s, early 70s R&B, you play 70s disco,
Dude,
and sure, you throw in new stuff.
Yeah. People love that
What's
stuff
that?
though, because like you said, it's like
That's it.
people because like you said, there's an element of people that love that because it gets them wanting to get out on the floor, and then there's people like I just dig that stuff because I just like the funk, like I'm
Yeah.
I'm just down with that. Like I ain't trying to get out and dance, but I'm gonna sit there and enjoy every minute of it. So it's sometimes it's more about like sometimes there can just be a hole that's not being filled by somebody. Like there could be
And that's the thing,
demographics that are like,
nobody's-
let's do this.
Yeah, and nobody's doing it up here.
Yeah.
They bring my friends' bands from the Bay Area out here. They fly them out here because
Yeah.
they do that kind of stuff, and yeah, they play modern music, modern, but it's also again dance, soul, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Right.
And when I was looking at their set list, I'm like, that's way too much rock in there. I was like, way too much. I'm like, you have some, stuff, but nah. So I don't know. And then I found out that he's not a really big fan of Rehearsal, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know what you get from Rehearsal, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
That's fair.
when bands work together and put in hours together and time together, it's special.
Yeah.
It's why I love playing in the 80s band right now, because we're putting in that work. We're putting in that effort, and it pays for itself. And
Yeah.
I have fun and I laugh, and it doesn't feel like a job.
Yeah.
And it turns out we're getting gigs lined up and stuff. And so, but the main point was, I'm feeling the freedom, and it feels good. It
Yeah.
feels really good. I think health wise, I think I was stressing myself out.
Yeah.
I now that another month has gone by, and I'm like, yep, I was definitely stressing myself out a lot. And like this weekend, I actually had this very selfish. Karen was going to be out of town, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all this music stuff. And it was funny. I ended up fixing stuff around the house.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a long time.
All right.
Like I was downstairs, and I noticed this one part on my furnace had whatever, I'd pushed some little switch the wrong way, and so I had a little bit of a flood downstairs. And next thing you know, I've got this rug pulled up, and I'm like, okay, I better get some bleach solution and spray this thing down, and sprayed that down. And I'm like, okay, well, now I got this bleach solution. What can I do with that? I'm like, well, I might as well clean up the bathtub,
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I go upstairs to my bathtub, and I spray it. I'm like, man, I got to redo this caulking. And then I go into Sharon's bathroom, and I don't go in there often. I was like, oh man, like I was like, I have a lot of work to do in here. Like
Yeah.
It was like I needed to do some painting. I needed to do some plumbing. The shower head was just blowing water everywhere. And I'm like, well, let's do it. And
Yeah.
it felt great. It
Right.
felt really good. I had Sharon a picture of her. I don't know why people put windows in bathrooms, but they do.
Yeah.
And I really don't know why they put windows in showers, but they do.
Yeah, that's
And,
weirder to me. Like putting windows in bathrooms.
Yeah.
I guess I can understand it from the like you could open the window to try to like so that you
Air
don't
it out a
have
little.
yeah, and so you don't
Yeah,
have like mold
like
buildup or whatever.
steam and-
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
what fans are for. The fans are supposed to take care of the
Usually,
you know.
yep. That's what your fart fan's for, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah, even though people think it's a fart fan, it's actually there to take steam out of the bathroom when you shower.
yeah,
So you don't have it growing
and
on
then
your walls and stuff.
this is one of these old wooden single hung windows, which is like just the worst.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like, oh man, the wood was getting moldy, and I'm like, I don't know how many layers of paint are on this, and I'm sure one of them is lead. You know, like
Yeah,
it's just
probably.
how old the
Yeah.
house is.
Probably not wrong. Yeah.
But yeah, but it felt great. It felt really good to do. I was like, I didn't do any of the stuff that I wanted to do for myself. I mean, I played a little bit of music, but I was like, no, it was not a wasted weekend.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
nice to
I'm
feel
sure.
motivated again
I was
to
gonna say, I'm sure she'll appreciate that too, having a nicer looking bathroom, and
definitely,
if you fix the shower
yeah,
head, I'm sure she'll appreciate that because that is definitely
definitely.
one of the first world problems. That when we have, it seems like it's such a nice thing to have fixed is when you have a shower head that sprays weird or doesn't work real well, and you get one that does work, and you're like, oh, this
Right?
is nice.
Yeah, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have done it if I was still kind of stressing myself out. I would have probably tended to be too lazy or
Oh yeah.
whatever
'Cause
it was.
if you're
So
feeling
more
overwhelmed,
escapist.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was great. It's been really good.
Well, the
See what
cool
else has
part in
been
that
going
too
on.
is that like
Yeah.
you chose to do what you did. You could have just as easily been like, I got this carpet up, I got the bleach solution, that's enough for today, and gone and done something
Yeah.
else. But you had the freedom to choose which way you went from that point. You weren't like, oh, I have to get this done or I have to do this. It was,
Yeah, that's what, and that's why I think a lot of it is because I want to do this, and it
Yeah.
felt good to do it. And the other thing that was hilarious is I was down in my basement and I heard munching sounds, and I'm like, that's a mouse. Like it was clear. The mice get into the squirrel food, and
yeah.
and I'd had a couple mice upstairs in my kitchen, which I was like, ugh. And I trapped them,
Yeah.
and I'm down there, and I got the lights on, and I'm like, and I got really quiet, and I could hear them, and I'm like, looks like it's coming from behind that speaker. So I get up, I start moving around, and usually that makes a mouse stop. No,
Yeah.
this guy was still munching along. I'm like, okay, and then all of a sudden I realized he's in the speaker.
Oh no.
He's gone through the bass reflex little tube
Yeah.
and made a little dent in there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take you outside, and so I flipped the speaker over, and before I could move it, he boogied out of the space. I was like, all right, well, sorry, dude, now you're done skiing. I just bought a case of these traps
Yeah.
that are, they're great traps. You don't have to actually see the mouse after it's been sprung.
Yeah.
You just see that it's been caught, and
Oh, okay.
so yeah, it was great. So, but I pick up the speaker and I'm shaking the speaker out, and it's like I don't know how many winters worth of
Oh yeah,
hoarding
bet, right?
they
Yeah.
were doing. Like there were so many sunflower seeds and
Jeez.
all the stuff in the squirrel food, peanuts and everything coming out, and then I took another mouse out, and I'm like,
Wow.
like okay. So then I took the thing apart. And it was like so much stuff in there. They'd been living in there forever. And the weird thing is there was fiberglass insulation in there, and a lot of speakers they put insulation in for the sound.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this isn't the right fiberglass, and I'm like, where do I have fiberglass down here in the basement that they would have gotten into? And so one of the things I did today is I have a closet down there that I haven't been to the back of in a while.
Yeah.
And that's where all the fiberglass was. It was
Okay.
in the back of the closet.
Yeah.
And they've been living in this closet. I caught 5 mice downstairs in 2 days.
Wow.
There was
Jeez.
there was a coven down there.
Yeah. Man, that's rough, man. You took care of a family of 5. Man.
I felt bad. I would have loved to have just taken them outside and,
Yeah.
hey, you guys could be on your merry way, but
Right. So they just come right back in.
I'm sorry. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of them's holding the
But
window
yeah,
open.
it was right.
That
Like,
bathroom window. Yeah.
you're just thinking of the movie Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Like, come on in,
Yep.
Yeah. But those are those annoying things where you're like, it just felt good afterwards. Now my closet, I can actually walk into this closet. But
Yeah.
it was where all of our Christmas, it's that closet where you throw all your Christmas stuff and
Yeah.
things you don't need to see but once a year.
Right.
So yeah, got that all organized and felt good. And yeah, other than that, just got going to Belize in a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Is that that's first time there?
Yep.
Okay.
First half is going to be Sharon's planning the whole thing, which is great.
Okay.
This is my first time going on one of her planned vacations.
Right.
And the first 4 days are going to be like kind of her adventure, and then the next 4 day or three or whatever it is, I think it's 3 nights, 4 days, and then another 3 nights is going to be lazy. But the first one's adventure. We're going to go to like some Mayan ruins, and like where you're in a cave underwater. Cave with on an inner tube, floating through, and
Okay.
they're all over the Mexico and Central America, and then it's the only Central American country that English is their official language.
Okay.
And then we're going to this island, and it's an island where there's no motorized vehicles, so it's like bicycles and golf carts and stuff.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
we're staying at a place there, and yeah, and go snorkeling and just just enjoy ourselves. So
Sure. That sounds cool. Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Going to a new place, and the Mayan, those Mayan ruins are incredible. You just look at the photo and you're like, okay, they built that by hand.
Yeah.
And then you see like a person in front of it in a photograph, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, what the? Like, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the place we're staying at is a howler monkey like sanctuary area. So
Okay.
there's like this family. They run their little bed and breakfast in this sanctuary, and so you just hear monkeys all day long. And the family's the one that actually takes you out on the excursions. It's kind of cool. So yeah, should be pretty fun. That'll be at the end of March, kind of mid to late March. I think we leave on the 17th and come back on like the 27th or something.
Oh, okay. Wow, cool.
Yeah, and got my birthday in there somewhere, and
Yeah. Finally hitting 80.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's been weird lately. I've had a couple moments where I said my age, and I'm like,
Yeah.
like, wow, that's a number. Like,
yeah.
and then the funny part is, our my coworker, who's, what is he, 30 years younger than me, and I mean, I just run circles around him.
Yeah. It's weird how like everywhere, like
circles around him.
Especially like anywhere that there's like physical labor, it seems like that happens. And I'm not saying one is lazy or whatever. It's just it's interesting to see how somebody like my dad was a good example. My dad at his body shop, he'd hire people off and on, and they were way younger than him, but he'd put out 3-4 times the work that they did just because he just is efficient. Also, his name was on the door. I mean, that does kick you in the pants a little bit too. But he's like he would say stuff like that, and he wasn't even like they're lazy. He's like, it's not that they're lazy or anything. It's like I know exactly what to do. I know what corners I can cut. I know like all my years of experience make me more efficient at what I'm doing, and I just don't stop. I work kind of thing. So,
and I was at my work. The health club is doing a bit of a remodel project, and So they always need to know what's behind walls or floors, or can we move this or that, and
Yeah.
end up being crawling in these spaces. And the general managers, after the third time I crawled into these, it's quite literally between two floors, and I'm crawling on these pipes, and it's just
wow.
dusty and dirty, so they
Yeah.
know where they're going. And I come back downstairs, and he's like, "You're getting a massage. I'm gonna call down the spa and tell them that there's an 80-minute massage on me, whatever you want." I was like,
Cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I got my first stone massage,
Okay.
and it helped my tendonitis and some various aches and pains that I have, so much to the point where I'm like, am I going to really need to start budgeting this? Because it was incredibly effective.
Yeah.
Like,
all right.
incredibly effective. I was like, I mean, I've always gotten something out of massages.
Yeah.
You know, like,
right.
but, and I think it's just because of my age. You know, there's
Yeah.
certain parts of me that they hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
they
Fair.
didn't hurt for days afterwards.
Right.
So I'm like,
Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool.
okay, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was worth crawling around in the floor for a while for.
Oh, it definitely was. Yeah. Afterwards, I was like, okay. I'm like, thank you. And then they've got some new. They're what they're really doing is they're putting in a lot of devices and equipment and therapeutic devices and equipment to, it's basically the new sports medicine.
Yeah.
Where you're really looking to hone in on your performance metrics, or healing, and how to that we live in, the people that live in our community have an active lifestyle, and it's like we come there so we can do that thing out there.
Yeah.
And how do we get you faster recovery or better performance or whatever it is. And so the new owners of the health club are very focused on it, very into it.
Okay.
And so that's why they're putting a lot of this cool stuff in, and it's some pretty neat stuff. I mean, I have to say, like, I'm pretty impressed with the tools for analysis, and on where using computers and models, and how they're able to assess strength and speed. And I know a lot. I'm sure almost all of it is driven by professional sports.
Yeah, probably.
And then makes its way down.
Sure.
But it's pretty cool. Like, it's pretty cool. I was almost like, all right, maybe I'll go back to the gym.
Yeah, it is pretty nuts.
Maybe.
Like I've watched, what was it, last year? I think it was on MLB Network. They were talking about how there's a ton of these guys coming up that are like college players that can basically hit 100 on the gun. And, but what they're, you're always afraid of is when you throw with that much velocity, if you don't have good mechanics, you're likely to destroy joints, hips, back, whatever, elbows, and so they actually have this started, I think, at a college. They had a system to where they basically, put a motion cap gimmick on you, like full body motion cap, and they have the guy go in and he throws, right? Then they have the machine basically goes, here's your optimal motion. And then they teach the guy how to throw optimally for his build, his blah, 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 right? And I'm like, that's insane.
Yep.
But it's to where, like, for a while, pitchers were really going to this one college because they had this available. Now the pros are using it, at various levels, because, when they're paying these prospects, they're like, we want this guy to pitch for years. We don't want him to blow his arm out or blow his elbow in, like, have to have Tommy John surgery next year or something. We want a long career for these guys. And, it's just mind-blowing, though, just the metrics on that alone, what they're able to do to try to minimize, chance. I mean, obviously, stuff's still going to happen, but to minimize the chances of it. And also that helps the guy learn how to get basically his the most velocity he can get on the ball, those kind of things too. So it makes him just a more efficient pitcher across the board. But so yeah, what you're saying is great, and that's just one element of a sport. Like that's not what
Yeah.
and I'm sure they do something real similar with batting and fielding. I'm sure every level of every game now is, because they're all multi-billion-dollar industries. So I'm sure there's crazy stuff that we don't even get to see or know of because it just doesn't apply to our level of people, But like you said, but eventually it trickles down, just like anything new on a car. Mercedes or Lexus or somebody of the luxury vehicles have it, and then eventually you go, oh wow, now everybody has it, because
Yep.
it's across the board. So yeah, I'm sure that'll be interesting to get in there and essentially be the old dog learning new tricks, right?
And it's really neat. Like they're building this consultation space, and there's just computers and screens everywhere.
Oh yeah, I
and
bet.
they're taking it to these. It's basically like what you kind of described.
Yeah.
They've got these machines now, and where it's the data that it's picking up, and then using AI as a way to crunch the data is really amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And
yeah.
what it spits out at the end, I was like, okay, this is impressive.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. And it's funny because like you said, people that live there or whatever, or come there, are people of an active lifestyle. But within that lifestyle,
Yeah.
you're going to have different levels. But it'll be funny, the very casuals using this technology, kind of a thing. It's kind of almost funny because it's like, picture if when you walk into your gym tomorrow, you're actually walking into like what the fill in the blank basketball team in your area uses,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. You're like,
yeah,
like, cool, I get access to all this, like like
yeah.
I
I mean, they put in a red light therapy bed.
mm,
They have a cold plunge now. These
Yeah.
are all things that have been, just been used in professional sports
for years,
and
the
even
plunge,
college level
yeah.
sports for
Yep.
a long time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the red light therapy is kind of crazy how well it works.
Yeah.
It's wild. When
What, I don't even know.
mean-
Like, is it supposed to like reduce inflammation? Is that what it's supposed to do? I don't know
Oh,
exactly
yeah.
what it's for.
It-
Okay.
it speeds up healing.
Oh, okay. I wondered
and
because
all
it's
different
obviously
kinds
it's
of-
caught on like crazy to where people have
Yes.
red light masks and lights in their houses and all. So it's like there's got to
Oh
be.
yeah.
I know it's a big industry now, basically.
Oh, it's huge, and they have this one huge bed in there that they installed. So you just basically, get into your birthday suit and lay on this thing, and
Okay.
and there's a bunch of athletes in there, and there's people that have had like surgeries and even skin conditions and like all sorts of stuff where healing times have been dropped measurably.
Okay.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, but I'm still on the mental health kick.
Yeah.
It's like I'd rather feel good in my head right now than be pushing myself physically.
Yeah.
I want to stay healthy. I mean, I put in 12 to 17,000 steps a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You're pretty active with what you do for work. you know?
I know where I could be stronger.
Right.
I know where having some more strength would help me right now. And, I'll consider it. But right now, the mental health thing is where it's at for me. I mean, there's just going to work and feeling right, going to work and feeling I'm in the right, my decision making is coming from the right place. Having compassion and heart for the people that I work with that might struggle, but on the other hand, also saying, but I don't necessarily, I don't need to work with someone that's not cutting it.
Yeah.
I'd just as soon have to work a little more, than watch you try to get away with nonsense.
Yeah, right.
But then also to feel like I'm coming from a place of compassion and understanding,
Yeah,
where I sit there and say, yeah, I understand that this might be a challenge for you,
yeah,
but we need someone that can handle this. And
Yeah.
if you can't, then, I'm not going to hold it against you.
yeah.
Go find something else to do.
Because it is really tough, because sometimes there's just a situation to where you can't hold someone to your example because they're just not you, maybe that's just not how they're built, or they don't have the same strengths you have, or whatever it is. So like you said, if you could, but there is room in there also for some honesty, which is like, hey, maybe this isn't for you, kind of situation, and there's nothing wrong with that.
and
It's
there's
just the
nothing-
truth of
Yeah,
it.
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing, I looked at it like for the last couple of weeks is just like, well, we can either part with you leaving on good terms, or you could part on not so good terms.
Yeah.
And when I get that phone call, like, yes, they did work here.
Yes.
Yes, this is how much they made.
Yeah.
No, they would not be eligible for rehire.
Right. I'll answer exactly what the law says I'm allowed to answer, and have a nice day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
not that you wouldn't anyway, but
I can talk about, and I'm okay with people just be like, look, this is not my thing. This is not what I want to do. Awesome. Go
Fine.
find your thing that
Yeah.
you want to do.
we all have that. I think
Cool.
that's, a lot of people that have tried a variety of jobs, run into that. And it's like, this is not for me. And it's like me, I always knew there were certain jobs out there that I'm like, this is not for me. Like, I'm not for this. Like, I would not be able to be a server at a restaurant. Like, I know I'm not built that way. And, like, my temper at the time would have been very bad for that kind of job. And, so it's just, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to do that unless, nothing wrong with that job. I'm not judging anybody who does it. it's not for me. So I'm going to try to find things that fit my strengths better, and that's all I did, and if you can, of course, don't get me wrong, this, if you need a job, it's a job, but also, at some point, just maybe be honest with yourself too, especially if, you're just getting yelled at all the time, because that's not fun for anyone involved. Like, nobody wants to go to work and get on your coworkers, you don't want them being mad at you all the time. And so.
And one thing that was happening is talk was happening.
Yeah.
And at one point, somebody came up to me and I'm just like, okay, you're sharing your experience with this person, but you're also sharing somebody else's experience with that person. That's gossip.
Yeah.
And we need to be done with this.
Yeah.
And so I just called a meeting. I just, it so happens that the one employee wasn't there that day. I'm like, let's talk.
Yeah.
Like, you guys were a team. We don't have, yes, we have our general manager and he has to have the bummer conversations about all this.
That's his job.
However, we all have a say in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've agreed not to have a supervisor. We are working together, which means we all have a say. And I just wanted to get it right out of the way. It's like, if you have an issue with somebody, go talk to the person that either can make the change happen, or talk to that person yourself.
Yeah.
But after a while, we're just gossiping about somebody,
and there's
it
no good in
doesn't
that.
lead to any solutions.
Yep, you're right.
No, doesn't lead to anything.
Nope.
Doesn't get you moving forward.
Nope.
It doesn't correct the behavior.
Yeah.
And it just builds resentment.
Yep.
And it just felt good to just be like, hey, let's just get it out on the table. Everyone express what you have going on, and our GM will either take care of it or not.
Yeah.
And he did. He had several really bummer conversations that week.
Yeah.
Because I found some stuff with another employee where I was like, are you serious? Like, what? and it just sucked.
Yeah.
On a Monday morning, I came because it was on while I was working Saturday. I'm like, God, I really don't want to bring this up, but I have to.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it sucks.
I don't want to find
stuff
like this. It's like, it sucks because I was crawling under a desk looking for a screw that fell while I was redoing some lighting.
Yeah.
You know, and I looked in the garbage and I saw stuff in the garbage that I'm just like, what is going on here? And it just sucked. But the funny thing is he expressed such gratitude for having me around, and I'm like, why? I'm the bearer of all
Yeah,
the
right.
bummer news.
I said that years ago to one of my managers because I was always that type that, you know, I've always been that type that if something don't smell right to me, I question and I dig.
Yeah.
And I can't let it go because I'm too stubborn. And and good or bad, I'm gonna find the cause, the root, right? And you know, I had one of my managers that was like, you know, thanks for blah blah, and I'm like, I really don't want to be known for this. Like, this is, you know, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be. Hey, if you need an employee, like, you know, investigated, he's your guy, kind of thing. I don't want that.
He's your guy.
Yeah, I don't want that because no one's
I
going
don't
to
wanna
talk
do
to
that,
me.
dude.
You know, because everyone's going to be like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, whatever I say will be used against me. You know, and it's like, so yeah, I get you on that. Like, hey,
Yeah. So,
I got to
but
tell you something.
yeah, and he's like, but the funny thing though was is like, oh, he'd been thinking about it all weekend.
Okay.
So he welcomed the conversation. He's
Okay.
like, I know I need to deal with this. And I said, okay. I'm like, he said, I just really appreciate that you come at these things with some compassion and understanding,
Yeah.
you know, because that's how I still look at it. Is like,
Yep.
everyone deserves opportunities.
Yeah.
And my main thing is like, what's your attitude? What is your, like, for me, the thing that's bothered me the most at my work is when people start doing the whataboutism and pointing
yeah.
fingers at other people.
Yep.
And
It's not about
and
them.
or being arrogant about it, you
Yeah.
know, and actually retaliating. And it's the person that owns their stuff and says, you know what, I'm wrong and it'll never happen
Yeah.
again.
Or here's what I'm going to do to fix
That-
it. Yeah.
Dude, to fix it, that's the person that impresses me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Things got worse. And I was just like, you know, it was getting to the point of like, okay, you just crossed the line. You
Yeah.
know, like this crosses lines for me. And then that person suddenly showed that character. I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Okay.
Owned
Yeah.
it, said, you know what, that was inappropriate. And I'm going to apologize. And that was completely out of line. And I was like, right on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Cool.
You know,
yeah.
that's
right.
like, you know, let's move forwards. I love that we can, you know, let's stay in the solutions.
Yeah.
We have plenty of problems.
Yeah.
That's not
Right,
finding
yeah.
problems is not the hard part.
No, definitely not. Yeah, my dad taught me that,
So-
you know, like before I went into the workforce was, you know, very much like if you've done something wrong, own it, and how are you going to fix it? Like, or what are you
Yeah.
going to do so it doesn't happen again? He's like, just be that way.
Yep.
He said it'll get you so much further than lying or making up things or having a bad attitude or getting defensive.
Yep.
And he was so right. Every time I did something wrong, I was just like, yep, I screwed up. And here I'm going to blah, blah, blah tonight and it'll be done, you know, kind of thing. And
Yep.
and I actually, you know, one of my DMs used to, you know, when he would talk to me and he's like, I love the fact that there's no BS with you, that it's, hey, I screwed up, but, you know, he's like, and you call me and tell me when you screw up even, because it's going to, you know, I'm going to find out either way. So
Exactly.
you're like, hey, I just want to
Eventually,
let you know I did this. We're going to catch some wind for this, but this is what I'm doing to fix the situation. So then when he gets
Yep.
the call, hey, so-and-so didn't blah, 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 he'll go, I already talked to him. We're going to do this, blah, 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 right? It makes his job easier, you know, so it's, but
Yep.
yeah, you're right. That the attitude makes a huge difference in that. Also, it's, you know, do you give that person another chance or not? Because if they're caught, yeah, I don't want to say caught, but if they've done something, you know, messed up somewhere, whatever it is, and they just immediately, like you said, go into the whataboutisms, that was another thing my dad talked about, which is, you know, when, you know, if you have an employer that comes to you and says, hey, you did this, your answer doesn't need to be, but so-and-so did this, because it's like, yeah, but we're not
Right.
talking about them. I'll talk to them
About
separately.
We're talking about you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. We're talking about you.
That's it.
Yeah. So
We're talking about you.
yep. So and again, it is one of those things that and we all want to do it, because it does suck when you get caught for something and you see somebody else doing the exact same thing. You want to go, hey, it's not just me. This is standard procedure. So either we all get in trouble or none of us get in trouble. And it's like, well, you don't know. Maybe they've already talked to that other person, or they're planning to, or, kind of thing.
Exactly.
I used to hate when I had to say that to somebody when they're, well, so-and-so. I'm like, this is not about them. This is about you and your performance. And man,
we're talking about you right now.
People do not like hearing that sentence. Do not like hearing that sentence. Because they can't move a goalpost on it. They can't push it to someone else.
Can't do anything.
Yeah, you're really kind of in a corner at that point. So really, all you can do is just, okay, fine, you got me, basically. Yeah. So
and it astounds me how quickly that comes out of certain people's mouths.
It does. Yep.
It's like it's just automatic. And then I think about. And this is the inevitable thing. I watch certain behaviors at my work, and then I go, "You're like this at home."
Yeah,
and I feel so sorry for your wife and or husband.
Yeah, because you're probably right.
Because you don't just whip this out at work.
Yeah. Well, you do this. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh Lord,
yeah."
Can't even imagine what it's like living with you.
Yeah, like I said, it's tough because our nature is to do that stuff because we've noticed it. And it's like, well, if what I'm doing is wrong, it's like, okay. But unless I've brought you both in here, we're not talking about them right now. Like, we're talking about you. I will address them.
We're talking about you.
Yeah, I will address them if need be at another time.
Yeah.
It's
you gotta love it.
That's always fun. Yeah.
Well, how about you? What's been going on?
Nothing, man. Nothing. I mean, I was able to go to the dentist finally and get they're waiting on some part to come in or something to come in before they can do my root canal. I think he said a file or something like that. I don't know what he was referring to, but it was so it should be here pretty soon. About within a week or so, they're supposed to call me and whatever. But I talked about this on Salty Language a little bit, but it was definitely an interesting thing walking into that dentist office because I was like, oh, you can tell this is not a publicly funded dental office. There's money here.
Interesting.
Because all the equipment was like, you could tell all the rooms had just been recently upgraded. The technology, like I was blown away when they had to do x-rays that she just, put the bite wing in. I bit down. She just moves the thing over, took the picture, bang, it was right on the computer, right? And
right
I was
on
like,
the screen.
And I was like, whoa. I was like, because I'm used to literally every other dentist I've gone to has been, and this is even before I was going to a publicly funded one, but it's just more of the age at that point, was, it was the ones where they had to go and, hey, we'll be back in like 10 minutes, kind of thing. Yep. And this, boom, like that, it was right on the screen. And I was like, is that the x-ray? And she goes, yeah. And you could tell she was just like, I was just like,
yeah, it's just
like double rainbow, kind of a situation,
right, Totally.
And I was like, whoa.
Like,
and then,
what rock have you been under?
Yeah, right. And she's like, oh, this isn't even the most advanced thing. And she told me about how the place she worked at before had like a portable gun. They could just walk up and do the exact same thing.
My place.
Yeah, and bang right there on the screen.
That's my place.
Yeah.
It's a gun.
Yeah.
It's a gun and they send it over there.
And she's like,
yep.
She's like, those guns are so expensive. But I was like,
the
it was
other
just
one
funny.
is no more. They don't stick the goo in your mouth for. They just stick a 3D modeling pen in your mouth.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's so you're no longer sitting there with the gooey stuff in the tray to get your impression.
Yeah.
To make your crown. Oh no. They just stick a wand in there and you're watching the 3D model of your teeth coming up on the screen.
Oh man.
It's incredible.
Okay. Yeah, well, and it makes sense though, right? Because so much of this stuff hasn't been updated in like, a long time, and there's way cool technology out there for this stuff. So, but yeah, you can just tell she was just like,
love that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just like, wow,
wow, is that a car?
Yeah, And
Do
I
people
just,
drive in cars?
yeah, that's not a horse. Yeah, it was. It was just so funny. I could just tell, you know. I mean, she was
Oh my
very
god, that
nice.
is
She wasn't,
great.
but you could just tell she
Yeah.
was kind of found it a little amusing that I was just like, wow, you know, and my childlike wonder. But yeah, they were great. I mean, they were very nice and everything. And also, I had another tooth that I thought maybe I had chipped or something because there was like a sharp spot on it, you know. And so while I was in there, you know, because they had to take X-rays of right there, it's the tooth right next to the one I need the root canal on. So he looked and he's like, "No," he's like, "Doesn't look like there's any chip or but." And he goes, "If it's sharp, I can file it down a little bit for you." I'm like, "Please," I'm like, "It keeps tearing up the inside of my mouth." I don't know what happened, but it's just got a real small sharp edge on it, you know. So he took care of that real quick, and you know, the only part that sucked was my insurance didn't cover everything, and I think it's because it was for technically I went to a specialist, you know, like it's a
Yeah.
dental office, but I went to I forgot what the word for it is, an endo or whatever they're called or something.
Yeah, endodontist or
Yeah,
whatever.
so
yeah.
I still had to lay out $150 out of my pocket, which I wasn't happy about, but whatever, you know, it's the cost of doing business. So,
Yeah.
you know, but whatever. I am going to, before I go in for everything, be like, can you tell me, is there going to be any charges? Because I need to know, you know, because I, you know, they did immediately offer when they said 150, you know, she's like, well, we can, you know, bill you, you can make, and I'm like, no, I'll go, you know, because I had the money. So I was like, I'll take care of it just so it's done, you know, but I was more just like, oh, because my insurance usually covers stuff when I go, you know, or I'm told up front, hey, your insurance doesn't cover this,
Yeah.
you know, so no big deal, but you know, it would have been covered or handled either way. I just wouldn't have been able to go for any other services till that was satisfied or arrangements were made. But you know, it was nice to get that handled and everything. So you know, I've been needing to have that done and sort of putting it off, and also then they've had to reschedule me a couple of times, and it's just so it's like okay, so it finally lined up. But I've been running into the same thing with my therapy though, which is every time I'm scheduled for it, either I have to reschedule it or my therapist has to reschedule it, and you know it's been a while since I've gone in for that, so it's like actually I gotta remember to email her tonight to schedule because I schedule through her because when I go through the front desk, they tend to schedule me on days she's not in the office. And I've seen it because she showed me on the computer that it's red
So
when
weird.
she's not there. And for some reason, they still like to put me in. The only thing I can think of is maybe the red only goes so far out. And maybe it's not
Okay.
there yet, but she's only in the office 3 days a week. So why are you scheduling me on a day she's never there? But whatever, you know. So, yeah, it's
Funny.
just what you got to deal with. So yeah, I need to get that sorted out because I've just like I was telling you before we did this. It's like I've really been dealing with a lot of you know, an identity crisis, like you called it. I think is really nails it. Which is I'm running into a lot of just like, what am I getting up for? Like, what's the point, kind of thing. And it's weird because it's like it's very tough for me because I can't tell how much of this is depression, how much of this is partially from grief and the loss. Because like you pointed out, you know, it's like I now have, you know, I had somebody ripped from my life pretty fast, and the things I was doing for her gave me an identity, and that's gone. You know, so it's trying to figure out who I am at this point and what to do and figuring out my future in some ways. You know, not that I'm trying to get it all like, you know, the controlling person in me wants to like chisel it in stone, you know, like down the road. And it's like, no, buddy, we're working with pencils, not pens, you know, like, like, you know, we got to be able to use an eraser sometimes and pivot here. But, it's been really hard for me the last, I don't know how much time is it really, this has been one of the hardest batches in my life to go through. And I know I've under what's the word for it? I've under God, I can't think of the right word. Not undervalued, but underestimated. Jeez, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. I've underestimated how much the grief was going to affect me and the loss of that identity. Because I think in my head I was like, well, you've gone through it before, but I keep forgetting also when I went through it before, when I wasn't having to be a caregiver anymore, my mom was still around. So I still did for her. So some of that was doing for my dad went to helping my mom at the time, right? Whereas this time I was helping my mom. That's it. There's no safety net this time. So it's hitting me differently. And it's as much as I think I've done really well with the grief, and I have in a lot of ways, I think there's other ways where maybe I've kind of put it in the closet behind the fiberglass,
And fed it squirrel food.
And fed it squirrel food, yeah. So these are things I want to talk with my therapist about to, how do I move through this? How do I what tools can help me here? Because I know there's just a huge element in grief and loss that you just have to slog. Like, there's just no answer for it. You just have to slog through it. Like, when people are, they tell me about losing a parent and they're like, when does it get easier? And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really, like, eventually you just get used to it. You're kind of numb to it. But it still sucks. It still hurts. You're still going to get reminders of it. You're still, like all these things, even years down the road. My dad's been gone 20 years, and every once in a while, something still hits me like he died yesterday. Like it's just, that's grief. It does what it wants, and it takes the amount of time it takes, kind of a thing. So I know there's a lot of it, right, that I'm still slogging. It's been 9 months. It hasn't been that long, But I also know a good chunk of this existed well before that, because I've talked about it on here before about not knowing what I'm going to do and what, different stuff. So it's, and it's gotten worse because I've seen friends with similar skills, which are not many outside of retail, looking for work and struggling mightily to find things. Putting in tons of applications and getting no responses, that kind of stuff. And it's like, and most of them have a better resume than I do, and they don't have gaps in their resume, like, it's like, so even if I need to find a job, there's no guarantee I can just walk in anywhere and find work, so it's very tough because I've always been I don't want to say operate with a safety net, but a backup plan, right? And there's a difference in the two. Like, a safety net to me is guaranteed. A backup plan is like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, I can pivot this way and try this, but it's not guaranteed, kind of a thing, versus like, if hey, if I fail here, mom says I can always move back in, right? Like, that's a safety net, kind of a, right? So I don't know. It's frustrating and depressing and whatever. And I keep trying to not minimize, but also try to understand where I'm at, because I want to use the right words. I want to show how much this does affect me, but also I don't want to let it consume/control me. Like, I don't want to give it too much power. It's really difficult. I don't know if you understand that or not, but it's like when you're a minimizer, it is so hard to not give something the appropriate power it deserves, but not give it too much power, by ignoring it also, or overestimating what something is actually doing to you. It's very tough to gauge sometimes for me. That's why I've always asked my therapist a lot of time, or like me and Jen talked about it years ago on here, how her and I were checks for one another. Like, am I being crazy right now? Meaning not so much crazy, I don't really shouldn't use that term, but, am I being the right size for the situation? Or am I overreacting or whatever? And, sometimes you just got to have somebody check you because sometimes we're just like sometimes we're just being big babies, you know. Sometimes, but sometimes we're also like me. I have a habit of going the opposite way and just minimizing something to where I don't talk about it. I don't. Oh, it's not that bad. I'll get over it. I'll be fine in a couple days, you know. And then I'm not. And you know, and realistically, what you've ended up doing is lying to your friends and family without meaning to. You feel like they're, you know, little white lies, but you don't realize that you're stunting them. They can't help you, and you're hurting yourself because you're not allowing for honesty and help when you truly need those things. So, you know, I don't know who may be listening if this helps or not, but, you know, it can give you something to talk to your therapist about at times, because this is a conversation. There's like two things that pop up in my therapy more than anything else. And one is, you know, various depression type things. And the other has always been my self-esteem. You know, those are two things that I will work on and work on and work on and work on, you know. But that's okay. You know, it's just what I have to do to some extent. So, although I will say this, unless you have something to say about what I've just said.
No,
Okay. So I did have kind of a bit of a breakthrough in my own head the other day. And forgive me for allowing me to, you know, pat myself on the back here or sound self-righteous. But I realized the other day that I've seen so many people, especially women, posting on Twitter about how women can really be themselves when they're around a man that they consider safe. Like, or not just a man, but anybody. If you allow people to feel safe, they can be their true selves. And this holds across men, women, whatever, right? You know, we all know that. If you feel like you're in a safe space, you can really be honest. You can be who you really want to be versus someone that you think may betray you or talk behind your back or just isn't really on your team. You're going to guard yourself, right? So you're not going to give 100%. So, and I realized how many times, I was just thinking about it, like how many times over the years I've been told that I'm a safe space by somebody. Men, women, whatever, you know, and really it's something I strived for, you know, and at first I didn't because, you know, I had the typical guy response of like, you know, oh, you're like a brother, right? In that regard. And it's like what they're actually telling me is you're safe. Like you're a person that makes me feel safe. Like our siblings do to us, you know, typically. We know, like, even though as siblings we may fight, if somebody comes at us, we got each other's backs kind of thing, you know, and the more I'm realizing that, and it's like over the years I've been told so many times that I'm a safe person, and it's like for the longest time I didn't see that as a compliment, and I think I'm finally seeing it for the compliment that it is, because people are telling me I know I can be myself with you. I know that you are not looking to harm me or manipulate me or whatever in these regards. And like, as even doing this, I all of the voice in my head right now is just like, quit bragging up yourself, you know, like, right. Like this is how much this is hard for me to do. Much like I have a hard time taking compliments or whatever, but I think it finally is clicking in my head though, how massive of a compliment that actually is to somebody. Tell them that you make me feel safe. And really, I especially women, when I'm a guy, because so many guys don't make women feel safe or even like sort of safe. You know, like, you know, you see women talking all the time about, you know, feeling like they need to cross the street because a guy's following them or whatever, or putting their keys in their hands or, you know, all these kind of stories, or they just don't want to be around, you know, certain guys. You know, I remember I've worked with people to where they were like, can you not schedule me with that guy? You know, because creep, basically. And it's like, you know, so that to me is, I feel like a really big win because it's a huge win for my self-esteem. It's a big win because I'm taking a compliment finally. And also, but it's I'm generally the type that if I'm tooting, ringing my own bell, it's more out of I'm playing a character or being sarcastic, right? Like on Salty Language, I do it now, whatever, and it's bluster, right? For the most part, like I know a lot of my worth and such, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I for sure am going to dial it up a little bit, whereas like I'm not in this regard. I really feel like there's some people who've told me these things, and I'm like, you know what? I value the fact that they told me that, and then they've gone on to tell me incredible secrets, stories, whatever, which of course I'm not going to divulge, but it's, you know what I'm saying? Is like that backed up the fact that they really did see me as someone that they feel that way around. And I need to start accepting that as a huge compliment now. And I also want to implore any man listening to this, especially, to not see that as a less than moment. Even if you're interested in them romantically, if you're told you're a safe space, it's like, this is not, don't manipulate that. Don't see that as you're being told that you're less than. You're actually basically, really, you're almost being told you're more than in that regard, because how many people in your life do you truly go, they're safe? Like, they make me feel safe, right? Most of us probably, it's like a one-hand situation that you can count on. So, yeah.
Yeah, my thing is that I want people to be able to confide in me.
Yes.
Like I really do. And so if people tell me things, I don't go talking about them with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even there's things I've never even told Sharon before.
Yeah. There's things I've been told that I've never told.
As far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's
because
like
I want to have those relationships.
Exactly. Well, and like you said earlier, what good comes from gossip, right? Like there's times where somebody may tell you something and you might kind of nuance a little something to where it's like, hey, these two need to talk kind of thing. And maybe you nudge somebody like because you know what's going on, but you still don't tell them. There's those kind of things. And I don't have as much of an issue with. But if you're just straight out telling people's secrets, especially, but I just was most of the time I'm like, this is not my story to tell.
Oh, it's not. And the other hard one for me, and I repeated over this last couple of weeks, is unless I saw it firsthand.
Yeah. Right. It's hearsay. Yep.
It's hearsay.
Yeah.
And if that person really feels wrong, then they need to have that conversation. It's not for me.
Yep.
And it's been there's been a few like oh wow, look at me, I'm suddenly an adult. There's a few practices in my life that have borne fruit and that have changed my life for the better. And one of them is not going around trying to save other people.
Yeah.
At least from the standpoint of like, oh, this is what happened to this other person. And it's like, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't there. It's not my direct experience. Now, I can talk all I want about my direct experience.
Yeah.
I can't talk about anybody else's. That's their experience.
Right.
And that, and just, if somebody tells me something, it's like, no, I'm not going to go talk about it with other people. The only exception I have to it is when it's company policy stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's freedom of speech. And if that's the only place where I'm like, where a lot of this stuff goes out the window for me is like, if we're basically not applying business policies equally amongst everyone, I'm going to go find out about it. And so one place I don't, because that to me is like, then it's uneven. Uneven policies are not personal. That's business.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%.
And it's bad business.
Yeah. Which is, again, like we said earlier,
place.
It's why everybody goes into it. But they did it, because it's like, well, why are you yelling at me? I haven't seen you yell at them, kind of thing. And it's, because people want that, because it should be. Policy should be fair across the board. If you yell at me for it, you should yell at them for it, or if you don't yell at them, you shouldn't yell at me for it. It should be even across the board. I'm with you. The only other time I think where I might violate it would be similar to a doctor or a therapist kind of situation, to where it's like, are you going to physically harm yourself or others? Then I might,
yes,
I might do. I talked to somebody years ago on Twitter, and she very much was telling me she was going to harm herself, and I contacted the authorities for a wellness check kind of situation, because I really thought she was going to harm, and she did try to harm herself. I mean, it wasn't that night, it was down the road, but the instincts were right, and it just sucks that, but it's like, even that though, it's like you really still, even though you're doing it in best interest, you still feel like you betrayed somebody. It's not a good feeling, but at the same time, it's like, I don't care. I don't want you to harm yourself or somebody else. I just can't stand by on that. I mean, I get it. It's their choice to make, but it's just, I feel like I got to do what I got to do in that scenario too. So, but aside from that, if somebody confides in me, I'm keeping it to myself, because if they want everyone to know, they'll tell everyone. That's, the real simple nature of it.
That's it.
And it sucks, over time. I've known things that where I've, had two friends, and I've known something that, about the other, and it's like, I don't want to be here, but somebody, they trusted me enough for that, and it's, again, unless it's going to cause somebody harm or something like that, I'm just going to stay out of it.
Yeah, it's some of those lessons I wish I learned a long time ago.
Oh, seriously. Yeah, I mean, my parents tried, because they were always, especially gossip situations, right? They were always like, gossip is none of your business, kind of a thing. It was just stay out of it. It's like, unless it directly affects you, stay out of it, kind of a thing. I had a situation in my family where one of my cousins hit the other one with, they had a car accident, right? And the one sued the other one for money, basically, like you would sue someone else's insurance, kind of a thing. Like, they sued them for the insurance money, but they were suing their insurance is what the intent was. But the other cousin saw it as though you were suing me and that you put money above family. Meanwhile, the other person